Welcome back to the Real Life and Fishing Podcast, episode 9, guys. And I do not believe it has been 9 episodes. If you have listened to all 9, hey, I appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of the Real Life and Fishing Podcast family. And if you've not, guys, hey, it's okay. When you're driving around, right here sitting at your office or wherever you're watching this at, hey, go check out another episode. Let me know what you think. Please feel free to share. Let's help grow this podcast, guys. I've gotten really good feedback, and I'm trying to personally, my goal is to make it the biggest fishing podcast in the state of Arkansas, okay? Today, guys, our guest is a Hot Springs local, Mount Ida local, Lake Ouachita, one of the Lake Ouachita guys. You know, when I kind of think of Lake Ouachita, he's one of the names I've always kind of thought of. Derek Sandlin. Guys, but Derek, we kind of get in this podcast. He's from Mount Ida, Hot Springs area, but guys, he's from a small town that means a lot to him, and he gives a lot back. After me growing up in the big city, and now living in various small towns as I'm at right now in Nashville and been for the last 6 years, there's something special about living and growing up in a small town and then being able to come back and give back to your community. So we talk about, Mount Ida, talk about what he does with the Mount Ida, the football team. He's a PA announcer. And guys, we also, of course, talk about fishing. I share a Lake Ouachita fishing trip where I got to fish with Derek, okay? I shared about that in this podcast. We also talked about high school fishing. Derek had a very major impact role of high school fishing, of it growing in that mid 2015 to 20, that 15 to 20 kind of years. He helped kind of the sport grow and put a lot of time and effort into it. And guys, also, I don't have all of Derek's accolades, okay? But I know one big tournament Derek won was the Mr. Bass Classic, which is a big tournament. And guys, we talked a little bit about that as well. The format for it was pretty unique. I don't know if Mr. Bass will ever go back to that kind of style format, but it was a challenge for sure that he and the other anglers had up against him. And guys, appreciate you once again. We're about to get into it. Remember, the Real Life Fishing Podcast is brought to you by Futural Marine. Guys, Futural Marine has 3 stores across the state. In the Nashville store, which is where a lot of their boats are at, okay? There's a couple Rangers left for sale, all right, guys? Go ahead, ask for Tony, Mason, and ask about a Woody special on a Ranger. Also, guys, duck season approaching. My man Mason is the one to talk to you about duck boats. If you're looking for a new duck boat, mud motor, they got a couple various styles. Also, with the bass boats, guys, they got Express, which is a popular aluminum boat right now, the Express boats. And Express just had a big announcement this last week. Lee Livesey, which is a Bassmaster Elite Pro that I follow, I kind of grown to, because he's not, his story's pretty unique. He's a Lake Fork guy, and he just announced that he's going to be with Express boats. Guys, by the way, I don't run an Express, so if you think I'm putting a big plug for Express because I run one, I don't. I'm just sharing with you guys that a pro I follow is about to run Express. I have a friend in Express, and he loves it, by the way. And they're at Futural Marine in Nashville. There's a few there in stock. I know they're selling those still pretty good. Call and ask them out today if you're looking for an aluminum rig to go to. Okay, guys? Now, hey, let's go get in the podcast, okay? Appreciate you again, and thank you very much for listening. I know you were at a football game last night. Now, do you announce? Is that what you told me? You're the announcer?
Yeah, I'm PA announcer. So when you walk the stadium, I'm the one you hear.
And man, that's awesome. People don't realize how important you are to the football game. People don't come and just listen to the game, but there's people like you. There's people that do so much behind the scenes of a high school football game.
Right, and I mean, to me, the PA announcer kind of, especially on a game that's competitive, a tight game, you can kind of impact the emotions of the crowd and even maybe the game a little bit. And I try to be one of those guys that's pretty high energy but not overkill. And I try not to, I go to places where I think the announcer gets too into the game and he tries to get the crowd into it. And I don't do that. I never tell the crowd to be loud because actually I think according to AAA rules you're not supposed to do that. But I definitely try to bring a little bit of energy and try to keep things a little bit more exciting.
Awesome. That's what down here at Nashville, the guy they've had done it, man, he's done it for I don't know how long. I mean, the dude, his story is pretty neat, but people just know him as that's what he does right now. And he does a lot of other things. But now at Nashville, this has just happened this year. And Nashville is always the high school football, right? I'm not going to get into it, but we got the Yeah, we got the lights that flash right now. We got the giant scoreboard. Hey, it's a show down here.
Yeah, we play some people that have that. We don't have it yet. We still got the same light poles they had when I was in school, and
Yeah.
probably the same lights. But yeah, Jessville Mineral, a couple of people we played this year have got really upgraded their facilities and went to that. So that's a huge investment too. So
yeah, how long have you been the announcer, the PA?
I filmed for them for 20 years. And then so I filmed for my dad coached here and Coach White. I filmed for them for 20 years. And after the announcer that was doing it during that period of time when he finally hung up his hat on it, I told him I'd like to do it. And I guess this is my 5th year.
Awesome. Well, dude, it sounds like if you don't leave Mount Ida, you might be doing it for a long time. It's going to be big time.
I guess I'm stuck there now.
Well, hey, I'm sorry, man. I was going to open this up with a story. And we talked about a little bit, and I'm not going to go in all the juice, but I'm going to share how I had a pretty positive experience fishing with you back in 2011. And I know I brought it up to you yesterday, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that was you fishing with me." But it was, for people listening, it was a Bassmaster Weekend Series event, and I was just getting into tournament fishing. I've been fishing for a couple years, and people that know, I didn't have just like someone. My dad just wasn't a tournament angler or a big bass fisherman, so I had to do a lot learning on my own. And I could catch fish in the summer at lowland reservoirs, but them deep, clear lakes like Ouachita to Gray, I never could figure out. And so I did the weekend series, and of course, June Ouachita, I was like, yeah, I might get to learn something. And I get paired up with Derek, and right away I knew who Derek was, and I did even my research, and I'm like, this guy's a Mount Ida dude. He catches them. I'm going to learn something. And asking you on the phone, are we going to catch them? How's it going? You were quiet. You're like, hey, have you a shaky head, crankbait, Carolina rig? And I was like, all right, cool. We had a motor blow up right off the bat, kind of set you back on your early bite that you were on. And I'm going to get to that because you kicked my butt after we got a new motor. You had everything organized, had another boat ready. So if something happened, which I thought was pretty.
Yeah, I did.
It saved me because when the motor blew, I was like, crap, there goes my $100, and I'm over here. You got a boat and more. But
yeah, when you called me yesterday, it all came back to me. You forget things after that's been 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But lower unit blew, not even a mile or takeoff. We was running 75 miles an hour. And
yes.
The lower unit come apart. And I remember the boat shutting down and looking back, and the prop was spinning backwards, and the rooster tail was coming toward us instead of going away from us. And I immediately knew something wasn't right, and so we shut down. And actually, your motor won't start because your lower unit's locked up. And Brent Stipe, one of my friends, I actually fished team tournaments with him back then. I knew he would be home. He wouldn't be fishing in June, and most likely he wouldn't be fishing. I called him and I said, "Hey, can I borrow your boat?" It wasn't an hour. We had a boat. So,
yeah.
And I remember the weekend series crew was real good to us. They brought their barge out there and towed my boat in.
Yep.
And so we didn't lose. We lost a little time, but it probably didn't affect the day much. But
yeah, and you couldn't go to your original spot, but we trolled over there, some stuff nearby, and then you pull up this rod, and I'll go to grab a top rod, and you're like, no, don't throw that. Throw your shaky head. And I look, your shaky head had something on it that I did not have in the boat. I thought when I heard shaky head, I was thinking finesse worm. And I see what you had, and I'm not going to go into it unless you want to. And I see it, and I'm like, no way. And you put a limit in like 10 minutes, and I'm fishing behind you. You're not fronting me or anything. And I'm just like, what in the world? That's soft plastic.
Well, that's June at Ouachita. I mean, if I remember right, the water was still a little bit high.
It was, yes, you're right.
A little bit, and I was catching them on, if I remember right, on a spinning rod.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, I'll go ahead and say it, a red bug trick worm, and or something like that, maybe a big worm, but something like that, just on the outside of the bushes and in the water weed early. And like you said, later in the day, we went and cranked and fished offshore stuff, and I'm sure you'll get to that, but it got a lot more fun as the day went on.
Yeah, so when you are fishing at the lake, you never know when you will have an accident or the outcome of the accident. Now, we always hope to not have one that could be potentially life-threatening. Life insurance to me gives me the comfort to know my wife and kids will not have to worry about my income in case of an accident that I have no control over. If you're interested in life insurance policy, then give my good friend Michael Howard from Farm Bureau in Nashville, Arkansas a call. My good friend Big Fish Howard will give you a quote today that will be the best for your situation. There will be more information in the description below. Thank you. He kicked my butt right off the bat. He gave me, and it was a longer style worm. Not going to say exactly because it was a specific brand. And anyway, but it was pretty unique. I learned it that day. Now, I haven't told many people that part of that story, but this next part I kind of have. So then after we do that, you get the boat and everything, and you have your limit. I have a couple. You're like, all right, we're about to go crank. We're going to go to Kentucky Lake Ledge number 2. and I'm like, why do you call it Kentucky Lake Ledge number 2? And I'm thinking, I know about Kentucky Lake. I watch KVD. That was my dude. And I've caught a fish on a 6XD before, 10XD, just came out about that time. And I'm over here like, we're about to do this at Ouachita. And you're like, hey, me and Mark Davis call this number 2. I'm not taking you to number 1, but we're going to go to number 2. And I was like, okay. And we got there and had a blast. I mean, we caught over 100 fish that day at least. Had to. Yeah. Nothing big, but.
We were able to get a big bite, but we caught lots of them 1.5 pound, 2 pounders.
Yeah.
And that's typical. When fish group up like that, it's hard to catch a 5 pounder out of school like that. And man, you're bringing back great memories because back then, if the water would have been a foot lower, I'd have had like 9 schools of them, and I only had a couple because the water was so high, it was just too deep on a lot of places. Yeah. And but them shallow places we went to, they weren't real deep schools. They was probably 10, 12 foot deep. Yeah. And it was structure. It was it was a variation of some rocks and stumps and a lot of stuff mixed in. And just hard places they get on. And they still use them to this day. But back then, there were very few people even knew about stuff like that. And now it's gotten to be where every time you go fish something like that, somebody sees you can't get back on it. And Ouachita has a very, like I said, Kentucky Lake. I think Kentucky Lake, I've been there 3 times. It has miles and miles and miles of ledges. Ouachita has about 5 miles, and it's a very small area. It's up in the in the rivers where it flattens out. That's where you find stuff like that. It basically any part of the main lake where it's deep clear, there's not stuff like that. Fish suspend. They do other stuff in the summertime, and if you got grass, they'll use the grass or get around brush. But up in them upper reaches in the river where we went, up the Ouachita River, the North Fork, South Fork, places like that, you've got enough flat water and structure, you get some big schools of fish. But man, it's not everywhere. It's very select and hard, and it's really hard to find.
Yeah, I say, and y'all guys, I know like LiveScope now probably even changes it more, but like this was, of course, back then 2D down imaging, side imaging. Y'all put the time in to find them fish, and like what I know now, and as good as I am with electronics, like I've told a couple of my buddies this, and this shouldn't be live, but it will be. Like I have a goal to go up there near that bridge and that part of those rivers and find some more schools like this. Because I've not fished up there much. Like even where me and you were that day, I hadn't fished it really since. Like, I mean, I've been a couple times on my own and there was nobody around and I might have caught a couple. But I know there's times they get there. But like, I want to just go up there and find them because I know it happens.
Right. Post spawn in the fall. Right now is
a
good time.
Right now.
It's about to get too cold. Once that water gets below about 60 degrees, it kind of disappears, and they go to more of a wintertime deal. But because I've actually experimented with this in the past, and you talked about Mark Davis. I mean, I'll give Mark a lot of credit for a lot of things, but he taught me to fish offshore. I mean, I'm never going to deny that. When I first met Mark in 2008 or 9, I was a bank beater. I was going down a bait with spinnerbait and a buzzbait and flipping, and that's what I did. And he took me off the bank and taught me how to read a graph, taught me how to read mapping is the number one thing. You can give me a map, and I can usually find something just by looking at the map. And he taught me all that, and that's been a great thing to learn. I mean, I feel blessed to learn that. It's been a curse at times because I try to push it too much and want to fish that way all the time. And I've tried to reel myself back in from doing that all the time. And but fishing that way, that offshore bite is a lot of fun. And like I said, post-spawn, May and June, even July a little bit is when it's the best here. And then when it starts to cool back down, it has to do with water temperature, a lot of it. When that water's in the 70s, that's when it's the best, no matter what time of year it is to me. And October, late September, October, even into November a little bit, it gets good again. And we had a conversation about, I'm not going to say the lake, but a lake close to you where it's really good right now. You can go catch lots of fish.
Oh, I went did we talk yesterday, right, or was it Wednesday?
It was Wednesday.
Yeah, I went yesterday evening for 2-3 hours, and it's funny how them fish move. But some fish that we were on for our high school tournament, we're going to get to that, the high school stuff that we do. But the fish we were on for that high school tournament, and we just did in that Arctotech series, those fish were kind of gone. It rained, the lake came up 3 foot, and I went out there, they were gone, but I found them in a whole nother deal, and it was just, I found them too late. I only got to fish for them for 30 minutes. I didn't have any bigs. I had 3-pounders, but it was just throw, catch, and dude. But man, that's one thing I was going to bring up. The high school stuff. So we got back to communicating in the high school game when I was at high school. Then I moved to Nashville. They didn't let me do the fishing team till a little later. But I recognize with you, you kind of you still fish tournaments, but you took a break on like tournaments, or like you put the kids in the high school in front of the tournament scene. And I was just going to, what kind of got you to that?
I got encouraged by some friends. At the time, back then, that's 5 years ago, there was only one trail, and it was going well. They had a lot of boats, had 60, 70 boats a tournament, which is really good for a high school trail. But I'll just be honest with you, I don't know how else to say this, but to say it truthfully, I mean, they were paying entry fees and not getting nothing but prizes back. So somebody was benefiting off of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the type of person to do that. If you pay me an entry fee, no matter if it's adult trail, high school trail, whatever it may be, I'm going to give you all your money back. And because that's what I want as a tournament fisherman. Now, and so I basically got, at the time it was Bassmaster. I contacted Bassmaster directly and got a trail sanctioned. Hank Weldon, who's now the Opens director, back then was the high school department for BASS. And I got with them, and we were with Bassmaster the first 3 years, I believe, and had the Arkansas Bassmaster High School Series. I went out and got sponsors. I got all the communities we go to chip in. I got Gregor Marine involved, people like that. And, you know, Strike King and Luge was big for us. But I tried to make something really good for the kids to fish for. I mean, they already had one trail, so I offered them a second one. The other trail was TBF. This trail was with Bass in the beginning. And later we transitioned to TBF. The last couple of years I've done this, it's been TBF. And I'm actually still the TBF youth director for the state of Arkansas. But we did that for a few years, 5 years. It started off great. We was 60, 70 boat range. And then as it grew, there become more and more trails. Bass Nation moved into the area. Lucy started putting more trails in this area and other parts of the state. It took away from us. Trader Bills got into it real big. So it got to the point where it got frustrating for me, and I probably got a little too frustrated with it because I was putting all this time and effort into it and getting all this sponsor money and all these prizes, and I wasn't getting any more boats than the people paying $300 to win. And I never understood that. And I think talking with some parents here recently, I've started to grasp maybe some things I did wrong. Not really did wrong, but just my views are different than the kids. Seems to me like maybe you can confirm or deny this because you deal with kids more so than I do. I run a trail. I saw them on tournament day. You run, y'all are involved with the club, and you hear exactly what the kids and the parents think. But I believe the kids, it's more important to them to, you know, maybe win a trophy and be seen with it, or have their pictures taken with a backdrop, like a bunch of banners and a big weigh-in trailer. I think they'd rather have that than a $1,000 check. A lot of them. And I put effort into making sure they got a lot of reward, won a lot for a low entry fee, and didn't worry so much about the Instagram followers and the pictures with the weigh-in trailer. And I think I kind of lost grasp a little bit with kids in some ways doing that. But, man, I did it for 5 years, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I'd really never had any issues. Everything went off great. And the way I look at it is I put my 5 years in, and it started off great, and it kind of got watered down at the end, and I just bowed out. I was like, look, there's too much to fish already. I'm going to step away from it and let somebody else run it. And I didn't feel good about it because I do have a conscience. I didn't feel good about taking sponsorship from places and not really giving them a whole lot of return anymore. And where some people probably just keep on pushing and take that money and take those rods and reels and hand it out, I'm not going to do that if it's not worthy for those people. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all that, and because we got a couple things we can go there, and appreciate your time with it too. You're still the youth director, as you said, but like a couple things there. Right now, there are too many trails in the state, and they do compete against each other. See, when you were there was like 3 there. It got to that first trail. I know which one you're talking about, and I didn't like it. Then another trail came in. and I liked them. Then you came in, and these two, y'all were doing good. And then all
Right.
of a sudden you have like 6. And
Yeah.
COVID happened too.
COVID.
COVID hurt the high school fishing, and I think um, numbers wise, it's not like it was right before COVID. But I just don't know if all the kids are getting into it. Like they cycle, each school cycles. Some kids, some like senior classes. Some senior classes have more than others. I see that. But what you mentioned on the back, like here, I'd rather have more money. I'd rather pay $50 and get it back or more, right? But like, and that's how it was with my kids at high school. Dude, they love getting cash and checks.
Right.
They could have cared less about the backdrops and trophies. They like trophies, I'll say.
Yeah, I like trophy.
They like trophies. I like trophies.
Choice of a trophy. I want that check. That trophy
Yeah.
just like dust.
Yeah. So, but now my kids at Nashville, and I'm going to go to like today's kids. My kids at Nashville are different. They could care less about that trailer. They could care less. They like that check. But in the whole realm of kids, no, like the whole realm, 85% of them, they want to be seen with their jersey, that trophy and fish and backdrop. Like they want that. TikTok, they want to put it everywhere. But like my Nashville kids, it's still kind of a little bit different, like how it used to be down here. I like it, I mean, so, but yeah, it's just the world's changing, man. And I love the high school fishing. That's what I'm actually, I can say it, people know now, we're going to move back closer to our family. I'm from Little Rock. My wife's from Little Rock. We're going to be moving to Glen Rose.
Right.
And so I'm about to be closer to all the hot springs lakes again. And I'm erasing my history, except some Ouachita history, and just going to relearn the lakes. But like what I know about the Blakeley's, keep it in my mind, the state park. But I'm still going to be the Nashville fishing coach. I'm still going to be coming down here, guiding on these lakes, fishing Millwood, work at Futrell. But I just know like it's going to help us, my Nashville kids, because they don't fish to Gray, Hamilton, Ouachita, and they're going to drive up and meet with me, and I'm going to get a chance to teach them the lakes. So and fish in some of these other series.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you what you said about it. 5 years ago there was 3 trails. It was basically the one that started AYFA.
Yep.
And then I guess the other one you're talking about is probably the Bassers that come
The
in.
Bassers, yep.
The Benton and Brighton and Little Rock group. And then us. We were the 3, and then Bass Nation saturated it even more, and then Trader Bill's got involved. And what's sad to this day, it's not sad. I'm glad they're fishing. I'm glad they got a lot of tournaments to fish.
Yeah.
And I'm not unhappy about that, but there's nothing big for them to fish for here. I mean, $500 to win is about all they come up with, and that's the Bassers, maybe 6 or 7. I mean, Trader Bill's pays a lot of places, but I'm not harping on them. Mandy and Reggie are friends. I like those people. They do a great job. I fish Mr. Bass, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to hand somebody $2,000 every tournament and pay $500 for 10th place.
Yeah.
And we were going in that direction if people would just showed up. But it got to the point where they wouldn't show up, and I'm like, man, I'm not going to bang my head against this wall any longer. If they're not going to show up, I'm not going to do it. So,
yeah, and what happened, like just me, like I tell some people, when you had and it's great. I love people putting, like you said, their time in the trails. But what happened is, like we have 5 or 6 circuits now, but you also have, like you just said, you fish Mr. Bass. There's Trader Bill's Team Trail. There's there's ABTT. There's Anvil Jaw, Sherwood. I mean, Rusty Hook. There's so many different other tournaments. Yeah, BFL. I'm missing some. But those are the boat captains, because the kids have to have a boat captain. Right. So then you look at the schedule, and the Bassers make a schedule, everybody. But are the boat captains, can they, it's so when you have 5 circuits of high school with everything else, it makes it hard, for it to be. Yeah, it makes it hard for it to be a big, we're kind of in the direction. So, but yeah, man, I was going to say, appreciate your time for it.
Like I said, I loved every minute of it. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. I met so many great kids. And what makes me feel old is I started with a group that was 7th graders, and they're about to graduate. Now I get to fish against them.
So. Hey, talking about old, like, and this is so like, and this happens like, when I was a football coach, baseball coach, track, I coach my kids, and like, this is what I love about fishing, and I sell it to everybody that when they talk to me about fishing. Like my football kids I coach, I don't have that relationship with them after school. Like there's a few I do. They'll text me, I talk, see them. But like our relationship in a high school coach to a kid was football, which is over for 99% of kids after they graduate. Fishing you do forever. So like all my high school kids, I had 25 at high school. There are 4 I talk to about daily. There are another 10 that I still talk to. Like Cannon Harmon, those guys, I mean, like we and so like I took Cannon fishing for the first time in his life. He was 13 years old. We went to Brewer and he got to learn about the 5 and 6XD. And now that kid, has gotten second in BFLs, done this and that, taught me some things. And so like I'm over here like, dude, this dude was an 8th grader. Now he's now yeah. So I feel old in that regard.
I know how you feel. I mean, I had some seniors the first couple of years, juniors and seniors that are now fishing like Mr. Bass BFL stuff, and I handed them checks, and now I'm watching them get checks when I'm there. So,
man,
the way the world works.
Yeah. So hey, your dad. I know your dad's a football coach. Was he big in fishing too, or did you just get in with through the community?
So, my dad probably the first person that ever took me fishing. He wasn't a big tournament fisherman. Like if McDonald's Big Bass Splash come to town back in the 90s, he would jump in. He fished night tournaments a lot. He did fish a lot of night tournaments with one of his friends when I was a kid. Him and my grandfathers are the ones that probably the first ones that ever put me in a bass boat. So yeah, it's a family thing. But he's not as competitive as I am with it. He just enjoys going fishing and the only time I can even get him to go anymore is if his grandson, my son's involved. If I say, hey, we're taking Irwin fishing, he's all for it. They'll jump in and go together. But if it's just me, he's like, all right, you go ahead. I don't want to go. So
them grandkids change things.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got one. That's it. I'm done.
I got a 20-month-old now, man, and dude, it's crazy to see my dad and my wife's dad, dude. Like it's just like, it's world's not about you anymore. It's about that one for sure.
And I'm thinking about you now, and you probably won't have another person on the podcast you have as much in common with as me because we have Bree and Eve coaching and fishing. Mm-hmm. I'm a coach's son. I played sports most of my life. I still played in a 30 and over basketball league until last year when I was 42. And the reason I quit is because this summer in June, Mount Ida High School had a benefit flag football tournament. Well, the night before the tournament, a bunch of boys taught me playing quarterback. I tore my ACL in a benefit flag football tournament. So I don't even have a right ACL right now. It's completely gone. And which is fine. I've learned to live just fine without it because I've shut down a lot of competitive stuff. I learned that I'm not 20 anymore the hard way. But so I'm a coach's son, and my dad coached here for nearly 30 years, basketball and football both. And my grandfather actually, if you walk in Mount Ida's gym, there's a plaque on the wall that dedicated his 30-something years of coaching Pee Wees here. So it's in my blood. I can't help it.
Yeah, so no, and we can talk about the coach's kid. Like I might get into that too, but the Pee Wee, you're doing Pee Wee football right now, aren't you? Like, are you coaching a Pee Wee team?
So I did it 10 years ago, and I took a break. And I come back I got asked to help this year, just help coach the 3rd and 4th graders by a guy, Jeremy McCullough, who's a former scrapper, I believe.
Yep.
Wow,
I know Jeremy pretty well. We might talk about Jeremy later.
Yeah, a good dude. So he asked me to help, and I did this year. And next year I'll continue doing it. Next year it'll be me and a couple of other guys will have the team. So I'm gonna do it. My son will be a 3rd grader. I believe he wants to play, and it'll be Dona. I'm still gonna do it. But I've always enjoyed doing it. That's what got football ties to fishing with me. That's how myself and Mark Davis became friends. He knew me just as friends, but we weren't very close friends. And he needed a Pee Wee football coach, somebody to help him coach Hunter and Fisher when they were in 4th grade. And he asked me to help, and that's what built our friendship. And I mean, fishing just ties into that. But it all started from coaching Pee Wee football I mean, and they graduated in 2019. So, at least 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah. What's neat is, guys, I'm just going to share with you, if you're looking for any additional fishing content, okay, I just started a YouTube channel. It's called The Fishing Coach. Guys I know that know me well, I've been an editor for the last year and a half, and I've edited and been on Fish the Moment. I've edited and I run the Bass Fishing Declassified channel, which I'm in a lot of content there. But I just started my new channel that's me, called The Fishing Coach. Guys, in 2 months, we've almost gotten it to 2,000 subscribers, man, and I appreciate you. If you are one of the subscribers and watch, give me the feedback. It means a lot, because right now in the fishing world, there's a lot of content on YouTube, content everywhere for a small little piece, right? Fishing's just a little, little demographic. And I know right now with mine growing how it is, it's all because of you guys out there. But if you do not know about my channel, hey, go check it out. Let me know what you think. And hey, we appreciate you. Let's get back to the podcast. So just a little bit background on me. I totally grew up in Little Rock, but I went to Bryant. Bryant's big, and it's just continued to get bigger. But coached college, but then high school, I always was at the small schools, and I love it. But like what you just said just kind of reminds me of why I love the small school atmosphere. You got people like you that have coached Pee Wee this year. Your dad was a coach, and it's the same people involved. And it's a big family, like Mount Ida. Giant family, like it's a town of 1,000 people, maybe, I don't know, but it's a giant family. Yeah. And so like Nashville, big family, and I've loved that small town atmosphere, because you got good people like you that help stay involved. You're doing the PA announcing, you're coaching 3rd and 4th graders, and so it's cool for these small towns like Bryant. It's someone's gonna get mad at me if they're from Bryant, but like Bryant's changed. I mean, it's not the. If I walked in McDonald's, Walmart, the school, I could walk in the school. They might not know me. And I was a quarterback for 2 years. I mean, they might not even know who I am. But I walk in like Nashville, Walmart. Oh, like I'm going to see 10 people I know. So I love the small town atmosphere. The coach's kid though, and that changes from like coach's kid in college, this high school, that, but at a small school like Mount Ida, your dad did everything. From coaching a spring sport, teaching, changing the trash can at the football game afterwards. And you probably had to do some of that too. I mean, you got to live it.
I helped paint him and strip the floor and paint. I don't know how many times I painted that football field. I mean, yeah, it's home. That's what you do. It's got to be done, so do it.
Yes, man, that's right. The painting that field, I got into it right when I didn't have to paint any field. Stuttgart got a field right before I got there. Nashville had a field. Oh, I had to paint some at Henderson, but luckily I got out of that. All right, man. So I was going to ask some Ouachita questions. Lake Ouachita. What's your biggest bass there?
Oh man, I'm a horrible person to ask that question. I don't ever weigh them. I've never weighed a fish that I would think would even come over 9, 10 pounds. I just look at them and throw them back. It's not. I mean, it's a fish. I would rather them swim off than me put them on the wall. I've never mounted a fish in my life, and I know I've caught 10 pounders. So I'm going to say in that high 9 to 10 pound range. Yeah,
which is a big fish for that lake. That's what, like, Arkansas, as you know, hard to catch a double digit. But I know some guys that are like locals to the Gray, Hamilton, and they've yet to catch one over 9. And, we see them come out of there, but like these dudes fish the lake so much.
The biggest fish I believe I've ever caught came out of Hamilton. And I caught one that I know was a double digit out of there. And it was stupid on my part. So it was the day before a BFL Super Tournament. And it was in a pocket where I've caught so many 3 to 8 pounders. I don't know why they live in there. They just do. And it's just a main lake, big pocket that's honestly about the size of a football field. And I went in there the day before a tournament with a hook on a buzzbait like a dummy. And there was a brand new laydown that somebody had just cleaned up their yard, and there was a green tree laid out in the water. I rolled that buzzbait off the end of it and caught one that weighed 10 or 11 pounds the day before the tournament, knowing I was going to go in there during the
tournament. You probably learned right there not to do that again.
Jamie Black had liked that practice trophy.
Yes. That's one thing. In the world I'm in now with editing and all the stuff I do, getting to talk to pros, I've realized how some of those guys practice, and like Alton Jones, for example. Alton Jones doesn't set the hook on any fish in practice. He might not even cast at times. Like that dude's so much behind the steering wheel or this, or they're flipping. Like I've seen some of the modifications of like a buzz bait, how they have that hook bent or this so they don't hook a fish. It's unreal. And I never, like when I was young, I didn't ever think about doing that for tournaments. But
I'll do it with soft plastic. I'll just put it on a screw, you know, on a little hitchhiker deal. No hook at all, especially if you're flipping. You know, a spinner bait, I'll sacrifice a spinner bait or a chatter bait. I'll just cut the hook off of it.
Yeah.
And or a buzz bait even. You know, now you get throwing baits with treble hooks, it's a little harder. You got to bend them in. But, you know, any kind of soft plastic or just a single hook bait, I'll sacrifice one bait in practice just to see how many bites I can get on it. And man, and I've thought that before. I remember a lot of times in my life where I had lots of bites in practice that they might determine whether I had a hook or not.
Yep. All my that's one thing I taught my kids. We went to Caddo Lake for one of our tournaments at Architect Series, and it happened to be right around spring break, or it wasn't spring break. So we went down the Friday before, and now one of my other teams has been going, but we went down the Friday before, never been. I had a couple little ideas of areas sent to me by some guys, try this area, that. But if you've not been to Caddo, it's like Millwood times 1,000. Everything's fishable. And it all looks good. Where Millwood like 3/4 of it's not fishable. So we caught some fish here and there, you know, but we got in one little area, and one kid caught an over. Down there's that slot, like I forgot, it's like 14 to 18 or 13 to 18. There's a slot, and so we caught one over. Then after that, they missed one, and then caught a slot. And then I sped up that trolling motor. And it was a giant flat. They were flipping. I was thrown in the middle of the flat. And I turned up that trolling motor. I was like, all right, guys, I'm going on 9. Okay? You just flip. And if you get bit, don't set the hook. And they had a couple deals. And they were like, why'd you do that? I was like, guys, these fish are in here spawning. Okay? And you know, and tomorrow's going to be a high blur. It's a March tournament. Tomorrow's going to be a high pressure blue sky day. I was like, we're going to come in here and fish slow. And y'all are going to get some of these bites. And they ended up, they caught a 607. We got second in the tournament. But, they lost a big one too, but they learned right then, hey, let's not go keep beating up on these fish.
Yeah, they were Thursday.
Yeah. So, but they were like, man, that's cool that we did this after looking at the tournament and it all worked out. And, but yeah, man. So also Ouachita. So that's big bass. What's your biggest bag there? Like 5 fish bag. It could be fun fishing.
All right. I'll go 2 categories here. Daytime tournament was in
March.
Daytime tournament was in the beginning of March, and it was all caught every fish out of rabbit on a 3/4 ounce red eye shad. And I was actually, I was taking some classes at the time, and I was working for Chris Elder at his car lot. And I was detailing cars one day, and the Interstate Batteries guy come by, and he said, "Hey man, you fish, don't you?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "We got a tournament here Saturday." I didn't know anything about the tournament. The guy told me. Well, it was a Fort Smith group. I'm thinking, he's like, $100 entry fee, just show up at Harbor Saturday morning. I'm thinking, all right, it'll be 10, 20 boats. I get down there to 70 boats. And I went to Rabbit, and we got a big warm trend that week. The water went from like 48 degrees up to 50s in a week's time. And there was still a lot of hydrilla. This is probably 2012, 14. I don't remember the exact date. I'd have to look. But I remember it was in March, and I caught them all on a red 3/4 ounce red eye shad, and I had almost 24 pounds, like 23.80 something. Night tournament. Me and one of my friends, Dennis LaGrange, a guy that lives here years ago, I give him all the credit in the world for this one. Before dark, we went and caught a limit and on stuff I wanted to fish. And after dark, he put out a bunch of green brush that week, and it was unreal. It was a rusty hook tournament, and it was unreal how good it was. And this was when the lake was really losing the grass. There wasn't much grass left anywhere, especially on the upper end, and they're always getting brush here at night in the summer, but that time period they really got in it because they didn't have anything else, and it was like it shocked them. And we caught them all on a big worm and had, I want to say, 27.5 pounds. Flew back enough to finish second. Blaylock Stetson finished second, and when we pulled up right next to him, and he said, "You got him?" I shook my head, "Yeah." Which me and Stetson are friends. I fished with him a few times through the years, and he said, I want to see. And he jumped in that boat with us, and Dennis's boat. He opened the live wells, and he looked there, and he just shook his head because we had an 8-pounder and a 6, and we threw back 4-pounders that night.
Uh-huh.
Finished second with 16 pounds, and I jokingly said, we had enough to beat you for second. We threw them back. But, man, it was one of them nights you just don't ever forget. I've had lots of great nights on Ouachita, several 20-pound bags, and even during the day. But that 23, almost 24 pounds during the day, and 27, I think, at night are the biggest two I've ever been part of.
Yeah, those are 2 big bags. And definitely like catching 27 pounds is fun, but catching it at night is another like high. Like it you know, you've done it. If people that have not that are listening, like it's wild. I mean, it's a whole nother experience.
You can hook them in that brush down there 10, 20 foot deep, depends on how deep the pile is. You got to get them out of it. That's part of the problem. When you pull an 8-pounder out of there with 20-pound fluorocarbon, that you've done accomplished something. That's hard to do. And I caught an 8-pounder. I'll just tell you where it was. It was right by the dang marina at Shangri-La. And he put a pile under a big light there. And there was people on the marina, friends of mine, that were partying and having a good time, and watched us catch 10 of them out of that pile. And the last one I caught was an 8-pounder. And I mean, I could literally reach out and touch them on the dock nearly when I caught that 8-pounder.
Oh, so when y'all were doing this, did you have was one of y'all a designated coal guy? Was it designated?
No, I was in the back of the boat, so I did all the culling. It wasn't that hard. So I was in the back of the boat, so I did all the culling. But when he pointed that trolling motor at the brush pile, I was standing right beside him.
Because I don't fish many tournaments, but I fished one night one this year, and I wanted to do more, but like that schedule down here, it was like Derek's and Greason, and it seemed like a couple of the tournaments where I was here, Greason lined up, and I wasn't going to Greason, and in the times I could, the guy I'd fished with couldn't go, but the Derek's tournament. And then I fished with Brad Deal, who's a dang local, one of the local hammers down here. Greasing hammer for sure. His boat was messed up. He knew I was catching them, and I've been on fish, but I don't night fish, right? But so anyway, it's kind of different. And we decided to jump in one. And he let me run the boat pre-night. I did everything. My fish I've been catching, the conditions kind of changed, you know, and I couldn't get a giant spoon bite like I did all summer. Still doing. But anyway. Then night comes, we had 15 pounds. Night comes, he does his thing, and he takes the trolling motor. There was a 30-minute section where, like, he caught like 21 pounds, and it wasn't just 5. Like, he caught like 8 fish between 4 and like 4.8. And I'm over here culling him. Like, there's one point, I had 3 fish in the bottom of the boat, and he's just catching another one. And I'm like, dude, quit. I got to. I was like,
don't quit.
Yeah, I know. I was like, dude, I got, because I couldn't even get it on the action. He's just over here catching them, put them in the boat. I'm trying to weigh them, get fish out of the live well. It was crazy. Then when he got done, and I got everything done, and I grabbed my pole, I then caught like the second biggest of the night. Then we moved to the next one, and I caught the biggest. So, but it was just, you know, that's just, those night trips are a blast, man. That night fishing.
I mean, at night fishing, you really only need 2 baits. You need a big worm and a black spinner bait.
Yeah.
Simple tackle
Yep.
selection.
There's supposedly a good crankbait bite at night, but I've never experienced it. Not sure about you.
I don't think I have. I don't remember ever doing it if I have. I'm not saying that I haven't ever. I think I might have caught some on at 1.5 shallow early, like May, like a black one. Just, but man, I basically throw 3 baits at night, and early in the year when they're all on the bank, a lot of them still May. I throw a black and blue chatterbait, a black spinner bait, and a 10-inch worm, and then as it gets hotter and hotter, and more of them are getting around brush and off, out off the bank, I just throw a big worm.
Yeah. Now, you've won, I know, some tournaments, and the Mr. Bass Classic was a big one. Was that your biggest tournament you've won, or the one you felt like meant the most to you? That was my question. So what's the tournament that means the most to you that you've won?
Yeah, that's the biggest one I won. And, after years go by, I start to realize that it's a little bigger than I thought it was, I guess. At the time, I won a tournament. I won $20,000. I qualified for Mr. Bass Classic. And, and I go back and look who was in the top 10 that last day and who I got to fish against, and I was fortunate enough to win. It was a little tougher than I thought it was at the time. That's the most unique Mr. Bass Classic that I've ever known, be on 3 different lakes, and I loved the format. And I had a great practice, and I had a real fortunate final day down there at the Queen. I found a giant school of fish, and that's one of those tournaments I couldn't have screwed up if I'd had to. I was going to win the tournament unless somebody else found a school of fish that big, but I'm pretty sure I found the biggest school in the whole lake that day. And it was a blast. I'll say that it was meant to be. It's one of those days, like, everybody's had days tournament fishing where hey, I can win today. You know you can win. Like, you get the bites you need. You get them in the boat. We've all had days where we didn't get them in the boat. I mean, I can think of 3 BFLs I could have won where I had fish right at the boat and lost them. But this day I didn't lose them, and I got them all in the boat. And that day, I think it's the first weekend of October 2016, about this time of year, a little earlier in the year. But it's typical fall fishing. Found them offshore and just sit there and caught them until I got sick and tired of catching them.
So that format, I didn't know. When I knew you won, and I knew it was a 3-day deal, but I was already you already won it before I kind of got in the tournament scene. But I thought it was DeGray. Then you reminded me it was the Tri-Lakes for 2 days. Then it went to the Queen in the Tri-Lakes that 3rd day. How many were qualified for it? Was it only 30 originally? You remember top of your head? How many fished the Queen and Derek's, or Gillum and Derek's that first 2?
After Ronnie didn't have Mr. Bass anymore, they went to Joel Newman, and they kept Joel Newman and his friend. They ran it for a couple of years. They kept the same format. So I want to say there was 40. I want to say there was 35 on points, and then they still had the wild card tournament where they took the 5 highest that didn't make it in points in that wild card. So I believe it was 35 or 40 boats. But that was the first 2 days, and the last day was just the top 10 pros. There wasn't any co-anglers with us.
Now, what was your weight? You told me about the day, but what was your weight?
I want to say around 16 pounds. And second was like 12.
Yeah, but you've caught.
I caught lots of 2.5 pound fish that day and a few bigger ones.
Yeah, those lakes. We've talked about it. Those lakes, man, can be fun, and they can humble you, but they can also be a blast.
Gillum's a little different. I mean, I've got lots of stories about Gillum. There was a group that kept going to Gillum every year, and it was associated with someone my friend works with. It was Nidec and Mina, U.S. Motors. Every year on Good Friday, they would have a Good Friday tournament for the employees. Well, the only catch was you just had to fish with somebody that worked there. They could bring whoever they wanted. Well, me and him won it the first 3 years we fished it. We went to Gillum, never seen the place before in our life. We literally made our first cast in the tournament, and it was a 6 fish limit. And so this would go back to what we talked about earlier. This was 6 fish, not 5. It's still been close. The first year we caught 26 pounds out of there. All of them on white spinnerbait in 2 foot of water or less. It come a rain the night before. It actually stormed the night before, and that lake was coming up pretty quick, and it was like every fish in the lake went to the bank. And so the next year, it made all the locals mad. They said, we're going back there. That's not happening again. So they go back, and we catch 6 that weigh 25 something on a chatterbait and a spinnerbait again, and they haven't been back since. But Gillum's a good wintertime at Spring Lake. It don't really have a lot of structure for the summertime. I think you can probably go out in the river and catch some. DeQueen and Derek's different animals. They got structure, shallow and deep.
Yeah. It's and I try to tell people, so on my guide stuff, one of the things I do, and it's part time, I'll do the electronic lessons where I get in people's boat, show them how to set their stuff up, do LiveScope, teach them whatever they want, and that's been my biggest hit. On the water lessons, I do guide trips, Millwood, and then Derek's mainly, but if they want the other ones, we can go there. But I had a few people this summer call me about Millwood, right? And I'm like, hey, Millwood's not any good right now. You need to come to Derek's. And most of them are like, no, I want to throw a frog. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. You need to come to Derek's. Well, the first guy that called me when I got all my stuff done, he was like, I'm in. I just want to go catch and fish and learn. And he wanted me to teach him Millwood about fishing offshore. And there's little ways to do it. And I was like, hey, Millwood was coming up at that time. And he fishes Millwood a lot. And I was like, hey, I can show you, but it's not going to work because the lake's coming up. It's just whatever. I was like, but dude, we need to go to Derek's. And I'll show you on offshore fishing. And you will learn a lot. Man, that day, it was unbelievable. We had 26 pounds. He caught a 6, his PB. And like, it didn't work out better for a guide trip. You know, I mean, they were biting. It was, you know, because it doesn't always work that way. And I was over here going in thinking, hey, we might catch 20 pounds. You know, we're going to show them what they look like. And then all of a sudden, it was just everywhere we pull up, boom, boom, you know, catch them on a crankbait, big worm. And so, man, the places are special. I love the lakes down here. But like a lot of people, I'm getting to in Little Rock, they don't know. But I'm like, hey, like when they call me.
Tell them.
I know, yeah. But like, they'll call me and want me to take them to Hamilton or Ouachita. And I'm like, hey, I don't fish the places near enough. You need it. They won't drive down here. So I'm just, yeah.
Yeah. I've guided a little bit through the years. Hugh Albright owns a guide service. He used to call me when he had too many trips. I've guided for Mark a little bit. I've guided for Jason Linderman a little bit. One of the longest days in your life is when you hand somebody a spinning rod and they turn it upside down. You know you're in a long day. So anybody that wants to guide for a living, it all sounds great. You get to fish every day, but it's not always a whole lot of it. Just because you can catch them don't mean they can.
Yes, that is true. That's why like I've enjoyed doing it. So like this is my part-time deal, but like the electronic trips are good. I've had maybe one that was kind of but it's cool to see the variety. So like one of my electronic trips, I mean, this guy's a dang hammer and he just doesn't use LiveScope and he wanted to see it. So for like, for the first time in that trip, he saw some fish caught on it. You know, he got to like see how it was used. But then, you know, like this dude the next day went to one of his tournaments. He's from Texas. He went to one of his tournaments and caught like 28 pounds doing his thing. And dude's a good fisherman. And he called me. He was like, dude, look. And I was like, how'd you catch him? And he told me, I was like, well, yeah. I was like, good. You didn't go out and practice scope. And he goes, oh, no, I don't need this thing.
And I'm not 2 cents on a LiveScope. I'm kind of like, I watch podcasts and stuff. I'm kind of like Josh Jones said recently. He's like the guy with it from Texas. Like everybody knows.
Yes, he do.
It's fun. I personally don't like it in tournaments. That's just me. Me. Here's what I see. There's always going to be a gap in fishermen between the guys that get to spend a lot of time on the water and the guys that don't. And to me, when you have a toy like that, it's taking that gap that's this wide and making it huge because it's widening the gap even more. And I'm not bad mouthing anybody. Like the guys that use that all the time that are great with it, I mean, absolutely pat them on the back. They embraced it. They're good with it. They know it's a tool and they use it. But they're quantum leaps ahead of the guys that get to look at it twice a month.
Yeah, that's a fact. So like my standpoint, I think like if they want people to come back and watch tournaments, it does need to go because that's just what the fans say, you know. And I like watching it as a tournament angler because I like to see how they use it, right? But I think it'd be interesting to have some tournaments without it and tournaments with it, you know. I think that would be interesting, you know. But like what you just said, and I tell people this, like I'm honest and humble about it. So once I got out of coaching and did my editing, content creating, all that stuff. I mean, I thought I was a good fisherman, right? I mean, but I didn't fish every day. I wasn't on the water near as much. Now during COVID, yeah, I was on Millwood more than anybody else except those guides. I mean, I was on Millwood a lot. But when I started doing the content creating and the stuff, that last year, I had a tough fall. It was tough. I had a couple good days, you know, but fall fishing's hard at times. It could be really good, but it can be bad. But like halfway through the fall, I told myself, I'm going to learn that dude. And I'm just going to sell out to it. So I did my content, and then I'd graph and scope. It started clicking about March. Even March and April, I wasn't fishing the bank. I had 2 days at Millwood. I went and had some fun, but I still just would go scope. And then it started clicking about May to June. And I tell people it's because I was on the water so much. And now it's unbelievable. Like the fish I have been catching, and I got the 34 in December, the 34 transducer.
Yeah.
Now that's a whole nother animal.
Like
I still have the 32.
you're missing out. Like it's that different. So I got the 34, and the first time I used the 34, Derek, true talk, I had that hover rig we throw for hover strolling. I had a 4-inch worm on it. I threw it out 100 foot away at a rock pile. Okay, and I see it going down, and I'm like, wow, no way. Then I see a fish come up, eat it. I catch it, 6-pound fish, and I'm like, this is. I couldn't do this with a 32. 60 foot away, I might, but not a bait this big. So, but like what the LiveScope did to me. Now, I'm not a professional tournament angler, but it made fishing as a challenge because I've been catching them in new spots, and it made it kind of fun. Because when I started doing this as a job, I went through a month where I was like, dude, I'm about to quit this and go back to coaching because it was just frustrating. And I was like, I'm about to go back to coaching. Fishing was fun. But then when I figured out, or when I said I'm going to learn that, it was a challenge. And I'm telling you, it's unreal. Like my whole way of how I fish is changed. But I'm on the water.
I've caught lots of fish using it too. And I've caught lots of fish in tournaments using it. I'm not saying I haven't. I've had one for 5 years, probably.
Yeah.
A lot longer than most people have around here. Lots of them just got it in the last few years.
Yep.
But it's still, man, like I said, I'm not bad mouthing anybody. Everybody uses it, and the cream rises to the top. If you take it off front of the boat, most of the time the same guys are going to win.
Yep.
But the guys that have embraced it and have the time to spend with it are way ahead of the guys that don't. It's made that even larger.
Yes, no, that's the whole thing is time. That's like I was talking to Trent Owens. You might know Trent Owens works at Future.
Yeah.
So that's why I told Trent like a month ago. I was like, Trent, all the time I've had on the water and got to be around it is why I'm good with it. If I was still teaching math and coaching, I'd be like any other weekend angler. But since I've just get to use it, and like yesterday, that's all I did. I mean, I just looked at it the whole time. Dude, like my neck, at the end of August, I literally strained my neck like that. Yeah, like it's sad. I know. I'm not even I'm still in my 30s. But like the scope neck's real. Like I was looking at it, set the hook on a fish, and it just went up. And so, but yeah, man. Well, hey, any other thoughts or questions or anything you want to say before you go? I try to keep it around an hour.
Man, I'm good. I appreciate you having me on, talk about fishing. We went everywhere with this one.
Yes.
Talk about football.
Yes.
And I'm happy to be on here today. You can have me on anytime you want to. We'll go fishing sometime.
Yes.
And, even if you move to Glen Rose, you're still only about an hour away.
No, hey, my circle of lakes it's there's a lot. And I'll tell you this, as I tell others that I fish with, wherever you take me, it does not go on a YouTube video.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, I'm like, they want to take fish pictures, and some of my friends, and I'm like, dude, stand at the bottom of the boat and take it at the floorboard. Don't take it at the darn bank behind you. I mean, you still have fun, take your pictures, but don't shoot it over here, shoot it down there.
Yeah, and then I didn't realize how bad. So like all the locals down here on these lakes, like they know the spots, they know where this new fish is. Yeah, they know this and that. But like when I started catching some of these fish in some random areas with LiveScope, and some guys were doing it before, I ain't like I'm the dude. Like there's other dudes doing it. But like there's still one little section of Derek's I've not posted a picture or a video. I blacked them out. But some of them got out, man. Next thing you know, everybody's out there. And I'm like, crap. But like I think of it like KVD, as many people watched Kevin and followed him and he still got it done. It just makes me be like, all right, we're still going to go figure it out. I mean, like, you're going to still go figure out stuff and learn.
Yeah. Oh, I got one question for you. I
yeah.
This. So, Bassmaster's bringing an Open here. What do you think
yes.
of
that? We should have talked about that earlier. Man,
you're like me. You keep up with fishing. You know these things.
So, so here's the thing. I've had people ask me why is Hot Springs not been on the deal, and I don't know all the logistics. I do know that Bass and these companies go to the Chamber of Commerce's. They present them, hey, this is what we're going to bring, and then those companies, the Chamber of Commerce, the tourism budget, they pay them back or pay Bass.
I know that Hot Springs handles all that. So
yeah, so I think them bringing the Open here is the beginning of a future Elite Series being here. They're going to test it, see how it is. And I think it's smart. Dude, as you know, Ouachita is not an easy place to fish. It can be, but it's not. There's
Not
so many. Say what?
Not in February. It is very, man, it's moody. You
Yes.
make it 25 one day and struggle to get a bite the next just because of what Mother Nature gives you.
Yes. But Ouachita presents strategies out the door. You can go up the river and throw a trap. You can throw a trap in the clear water. There's grass now coming back in certain spots of the lake. You got brush. There's the tree bite that someone's going to figure out. Somebody's going to go figure out some live scoping in the middle of the lake stuff too. So like I'm excited about it coming. Now what's tough is like what Bass will do. Like, they want people to fish all of them. They don't want jackpotters.
Yeah, I'm trying to fish it. I'll be honest with you. I've saved money. It's funny. I saved money to buy me a 34, and that money just went to the Open.
Yeah.
So I'm contacting them and like, when can I pay my deposit or when can I pay? And they give me all the information. And they said, they don't frown on jackpotters at all. They got to fill their field, but it's the first one in that division. And everybody's going to want to fish it. So for a guy to get in with just one, it's like me or anybody around here, it's going to be a little bit difficult. You might get lucky and get in, but you might not too.
It's going to be hard because that's if it was the third or fourth one in the series, get in. But with it being the first, but I'm excited about it. I don't know with my schedule. I'm not fishing as a pro, but I've thought about it as a co-angler if they need co-anglers. And like last year I was going to fish the one of the series as a co-angler, but then my wife we found out she was pregnant with number 2, and so I said no, I'm not going to go do the co-angler stuff. But I was going to do it as like a learning opportunity. Like let's say I got like Jason Christie or Browning, Greg Hackney, Ben Milliken, Brandon Polinick. I'll just sit in the boat and watch. Like I might not fish. I might just hang out and just
$450 watch trip.
Yeah, because I tell Ben Milliken, hey, go catch your fish, and then if you want me to catch one, I will. Because his co-anglers caught fish at Toledo, and but like a guide trip's $400. So I was like, hey, 2 days with someone good, I might go learn something and become their friend if I play that game. But now Ouachita won't play that game unless I don't know. If I get one of those Japanese dudes, I might just sit there and watch what he does. But I'm excited about it, man. I think it's great for hot springs, great for
MLF is, this is MLF territory for the most part. They brought cups here, Hamilton and Ouachita numerous times, and they brought Toyota Series tournaments to Dardanelle a lot and occasionally Ouachita. But this is the first time Bass has been here forever.
Yeah.
So they do have elite tournaments up at Dardanelle from time to time. But as far as Ouachita, I think it's the first Open they've had here since like 2002.
Long time.
I'm glad to see them coming back. I hope they keep it up because there's lots of fishermen around here that will be happy to fill that field for them.
Yes. Well, like now you got your elite guys. I don't know like where they're at. Like a Stetson Blaylock. Does he get leeway to come fish it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
They do. If they're qualified to the elite series, I believe they got priority entries. So
yeah, and then you got your BPT dudes. Like is a Mark Davis about to try to come over? I don't know.
Same as us. He's not fishing bass, and
yeah.
The only way you're guaranteed a spot is if you're going to fish all 9. And then it goes down to, I believe the next step is if you're going to fish all of them in that division.
Great.
And if the field's not full, after all that, those couple of weeks of registration, they open it up to everybody who wants to fish that one. So, and my intention would be, hey, if I fished Ouachita and just did decent, like if I won the tournament, great, I'm going to fish all of them I can. But if I just did decent, cash a check, I'll probably go ahead and enter the next 2 in that division. Because the one's in Alabama, one's in Oklahoma. They're not terribly far away. One of them's at Eufaula. I've been there before.
Phone call. Yeah, 100%. And like you just said, Eufaula and that one, I forgot the name of the lake for Alabama, but it fits to like Arkansas Angler Streams.
Yeah, it's Neely Henry.
Yeah, it's going to be a deal that you can go compete in. You can go there and do pretty well.
Go Talladega, watch NASCAR race same weekend. if you don't catch it.
Well, man, I appreciate it. I'm going to cut this. I'm glad you brought that up. I should have wrote that down.
It's okay. Stop it in there.